This is This League, the show about the biggest league in the world. I'm your host, Peyton Gallagher, with, of course, the Oracle, the all-knowing of the USL, and the guy who's not as smart, not as tall, not as good-looking, Ryan Sikora, the radio play-by-play for Phoenix Rising Football Club. This is a show about the United Soccer League's championship division, the top division in this league, at least for now. And it's a season in front of us that I think maybe offers more intrigue than any in recent memory across the landscape of this 24-team division. This will serve as our preview for the season. We're going to do it a little bit differently this time around. There's plenty of good previews going team by team. We're not going to do that. You've got enough of that elsewhere. What we're going to do is we're going to ask 21 burning questions about the USLC and see what falls out of the tree. Guys, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
This has got to be a top five version of 21 questions that's ever been played in society's history, Peyton.
Are the others relating to the Russian Revolution? What other historical periods are we talking here?
I like the Russian Revolution one. That's a good shout.
Yeah, I heard George Patton absolutely loved 21 questions. Maybe not talking about MLS Next Proers, though, and that will be where we begin today. Question number one, gentlemen, and these guys have not seen any of these questions yet, so this will be fresh firing from the hip. Which player incoming from MLS Next Pro makes the biggest impact this year in the USLC? Ryan, that's particularly pertinent to Phoenix Rising, so I think it's suitable we start with you.
Yeah, so I could give you about 100,000 Phoenix Rising players
All of them?
eligible for that one, but I will go actually to Phoenix Rising's match day one opponent in Taylor Calhera, who was on the best 11 in Next Pro, is expected to lead the line of a group that right now is pretty fragile up front. When you look at what Tulsa has in terms of Calhera and then Stojanovic, Khalil Ahmedkar figures to be a key creative piece for them, but they need goals, and they didn't get a lot of those last year en route to a 10th place finish in the Western Conference out there in Tulsa. They bring in a new coach, they bring in a new director, and Caleb Sewell, who's been fantastic in his time in the championship, and they go and pluck a goal scorer who was one of the best last year in Next Pro and Taylor Calhera. It's been hit or miss in terms of Next Pro goal scorers. Obviously, Remy Cabral was fantastic 2 years ago, dealt with some injury issues for Phoenix themselves, couldn't quite get going. Um, he, for me, off rip, is the one that I want to watch, mostly, in part because I've been doing a lot more research into Tulsa over the last 48 hours or so. But the most intriguing goal scoring signing from the Next Pro ranks, and I think you can't ever overlook the goal scorers at this stage in the season. We could get hipster. I'm sure you would love to, Peyton. I'm sure John will, but I'll stick with the goal scorer and go with Taylor Calhera.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a team that I don't know if I think they're going to be very good, but in Monterey Bay, but Nico Gordon coming into central defense there, somebody who's going to be captaining the team despite the fact that he's only, I think, 22 years old, led North Texas with a very strong, only given up about a goal a game kind of defense last season. If Monterey does end up being successful, I think it's because he's a real standout at the back, somebody who gives them stability, can help kind of spearhead build from the back and initiate with the ball. He's somebody to keep an eye on, no, not only in the next pro mover sense, but in the potential young player of the year race.
It's an interesting kind of emerging relationship between these two leagues at this point, settling into year two, year three of MLS Next Pro as a professional division. Do you think this is kind of an area where USL clubs can game the market, can get an edge if they scout this league particularly well?
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah.
Go right ahead.
No, I think we're going to go in the same place here where next pro, when you look at some of the top end players in that league, I think there is this lingering sense among their parent clubs that maybe they aren't ready for the MLS jump. So if somebody balls out in next pro, puts up the big numbers, feels like they've earned a leap up the table, but MLS isn't necessarily offering it, that's a path for the USL to really come in, get these talented players who have professional experience under their belt and improve their own rosters in the process. So I think you're only going to see more and more of these kind of cross league transactions.
100%, right? You look at what MLS is becoming as sort of an acquiring league that's looking to acquire young talent and move them on. 18, 19, 20-year-old kids from South America, maybe young people like what Toronto did last year, falling through the cracks in Europe, bringing them in and hopefully selling them on. USL becomes a site for these next pro guys because they can't fit in to an MLS squad. So now all of a sudden, where do they go? Because they need to play men's football. They can't continue to play against 15, 16-year-olds day in, day out in training and stuff like that. And I think USL Championship teams see sell-on value in a lot of that stuff because of the way that Major League Soccer academies have been trained up over the last couple of years. There are better players than there were 5 years ago in Major League Soccer academies that are now playing Next Pro. And if they can't quite crack it at the Major League Soccer level, they're good players. They're better players than they are at the Next Pro level. Let's bring them into the USL Championship. Let's see if there's some sell-on value in a player that could maybe score 10, 15 goals in our league against 28-year-olds. Can we get him a la Nick Marcanic off to Europe and stuff like that?
You'd imagine it's a pretty key data point at this stage for front offices to maybe make smarter decisions about younger players just because you have more information for a guy coming out of college, what kind of player they are at this type of professional level and how they can maybe operate tactically inside that MLS style framework as well. That's super important for these USL clubs. But we're talking about some of these younger players, the players with sell-on value, and Ryan, you hit on that. I think this is a hugely important question, actually, heading into this season, and I kind of want to pretense it before I ask. When I say the word important here, I mean not necessarily to a team, but to the league at large, maybe, in terms of their ability to influence the perception of the league with a transfer, or maybe make some waves in that regard. So who is the most important U21 in the league today?
Yeah, I mean, considering some of the big names out there, you've got the Bryce Jamisons, you've got the Nate Worth types. I think Jameson in particular is the one who stands out for me. He's had a lot of hype. He's certainly had the most transfer rumors when you think about whether it's Belgium or Germany or the Netherlands. Given all of that energy that has kind of been put, not only from Jameson just looking like a very good player, but the league hyping him up, he feels like somebody who's a little bit of a bellwether where you'd like to see him go over and have some success. And I don't want to say it's the dirty secret of the USL that some of these kids have gone and not necessarily made the biggest impact, but you've seen the trend. Like I'm thinking about Christian Pirano maybe coming back to the league, Jose Gallegos doing well, but not dynamite. So I think Jameson, if and when he does make the move, ought to be someone to keep an eye on.
Are you worried at all that he's maybe been recruited over a little bit in this cycle by Orange County?
Almost seems like it. You have to think that Danny Stone knows we need to keep this kid in the shop window, but it's going to be competition for minutes. Like that's a team that wants to win and won't just give Jameson the time if he's not performing.
Yeah. Ryan, I'm pretty sure you might have a lean on a guy, but I'm going to let you.
Yeah. I mean, so I want to go with what John said and bounce off of some of the stuff where he said there's been no secret that there have been guys that have made the jump and not found success. Maybe the first guy in the modern era of the USL Championship that was able to do that and get to Europe was Kobe Henry, center back in Orange County.
Yeah.
I look at another center back and a chance to, take another trend that way. It's Pop Marboy, who's been named the captain of Phoenix Rising. It's no secret how much Phoenix values him as an individual, how much effort they put into getting him to the club at the beginning of last year. There was a large expectation that he would be there for a year, get 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 plus minutes and be moved along. Yet here he is, still here at 20 years old in Phoenix, and now captaining the team. And that's not necessarily to say he's been given the captain's armband fully because he's a top leader. No, they want to prove that he can be that in a room. He can not only be a immensely talented center back, but can also take on some kind of leadership burden. I think he can buck the trend of some USL Championship center backs and get a chance to move on there, whether it be Major League Soccer or, in the Kobe Henry mold, that European move. Also with Orange County, you mentioned, obviously, the prized possession they have in Bryce Jamison. So many young players. Right? Benjamin Barjolo, I think, is someone who could be primed if there are minutes at his disposal to step up. Pedro Guimaraes was obviously wonderful for the U.S. Youth National Team over the offseason. I expect him to step up into a much larger role. Danny Stone is a manager that wants to play young players. He wants to give young players a chance. He matches perfectly with Orange County's identity. There's so many players outside of Bryce Jamison that will step up for them at different points this year.
Let's dig into Pop, though, because that's kind of the question within the question when I'm thinking about these. I was hoping for Pop Marboy to come up because, in terms of importance, maybe the pathway that he illustrates as a guy who is a high super draft pick and chose to play for Phoenix Rising anyway, I don't know. Does his success correlate maybe with a point of importance for the league, showing guys this might be a better professional opportunity than being at the bottom of an MLS roster?
Well, I'd be curious to get John's take on it because I know for a fact that teams are pitching these things. They're pitching, and John will know it too. Teams are going to these top five, top 10 players in college and saying, hey, we're going to give you 2,000 minutes this year. We're not going to have you play with 17-year-olds. You're going to play with 30-year-olds who have to put food on the table and have to work their butts off night in, night out, train hard every day, and it's better for you. It's more competitive. It's a harsher environment that if you thrive, you're going to be better off for it. And it worked for Phoenix's pitch to get Pop Marboy to Arizona. It's going to continue to work for some teams here and there. And as the league becomes more of a selling league, there's more of a pitch to say, hey, come here for 2, 3 years, three max, hopefully, for your development. And we will move you on when you have proven you are above the level and we can make a nice, from the business side of it, make a nice fee off of it. So I think, he's a good bellwether to where it's going to go if it works. If it doesn't, you still see teams try it. I mean, I'm certain other teams are looking to do a lot of the same stuff, John.
No, I mean, I think about Sean Smart, who was Pop
Yes.
Marboy's college teammate, choosing to go to Las Vegas, another player linked to Europe this winter. That's somebody who's kind of carving that same path, blazing that same trail, trying to kind of set the tone for future college prospects. Last weekend, Morris Duggan, who ended last season on loan with Rhode Island, he got real MLS minutes in opening weekend over there. And in the post-game interview, he was asked, what was the difference between the level? And he was glowing about what the USL provided in terms of playing against grown men, being able to develop himself. Yes, he's somebody who went through the draft pipeline, but I think when you hear players have those experiences, more and more guys are going to say, why don't I just go get 1,500, 2,000 minutes playing somewhere where it means a little bit more than a next pro?
It's got to come with the promise of it as well. It has to come with the, hey, you have to trust the front office. You have to trust the organization you're going to. You have to trust the coach. And that was something that was really good for, I think, more boys specifically last year. He went there with the intent to play for the defending league champions, play for what was largely received as the best coach, at least for young development and leadership minds in Juan Guerra at the time in the league. And then all of a sudden, he commits to play for Phoenix Rising. Juan Guerra goes to MLS, and he's got to step into an organization that now all of a sudden is a little disjointed, is trying to find its new way under a new coach, and he thrived in that. And that's got to be even better for someone's development like that. Now, that's not the ideal scenario you want to put a 19-year-old kid into if you're every team in the USL Championship, but it's a real scenario. You're not going to see that happen as often in Next Pro. The real lifeness, for lack of the term, of the USL Championship is going to be super beneficial for kids like that.
Yeah, so much more grace to make mistakes on the job as well, because Pop Boy goes to an MLS team and is roster player 18 to 24 and is in a situation where when he gets his opportunity to play, if it's not nice and neat, there's not going to be much grace. Coaches not going to take that time and allow him to make mistakes because their job's on the line. So I think that's a big part of this as well, having the better developmental opportunity maybe at the USL level. All right. Question number 3. This is more about the micro picture and maybe not the macro in the USL. This one, there's a recent transfer as well that probably plays into this too. Which interleague transaction has the highest stakes to you? And I'll let you go wherever you want with that.
I mean, you're hitting at it. It was the first thing I thought of. It's Johnny Rodriguez moving from Oakland to Las Vegas. Very much a kind of prove it trade on both sides, or transfer rather, where Oakland is saying, we think we can either match that production or sign somebody who can do what Johnny Rodriguez did. And if you're the Las Vegas Lights, like that's your Corey Bennett replacement. That's the guy who's going to lead the line, be your proper number 9 at the top of what is going to be a pretty mysterious shape until we see some game minutes from this Las Vegas team. But Rodriguez, one of the most underrated finishers in the league for my taste, feels like he can be a major addition for a team that there is still some question marks around.
Can I take League One to Championship as an interleague
All
or
right, we're
no?
going to talk about that later. We're going to talk about that later.
Okay. Then I'll have to echo the Johnny Rodriguez stuff, right? I mean, you have to hope that Oakland is going to spend that money, and if they do, then you're really looking at a team that I think could build something. They've already got a lot of fun pieces in place, and there's a hope that some of the football they're going to play and some of the steps they're taking are in the right direction as they enter what is going to be the grandest arena in the championship next year, and they're hoping to kind of bank on a lot of that. So you want the vibes to be good, and you hope they spend that money because if it works there, all of a sudden you have a really high potential franchise in your remaining teams, especially as you look towards what could be a not a splintering, but a restructuring of the way the league works. Oakland wants to prime themselves to be amongst the Chiefs in the new era if it does get to that point. Johnny Rodriguez is going to be really fun. Um, and it's going to be really fun to watch a Vegas team retool in general after losing probably the best coach of the year, the coach of the year that I would have gone for 1000% last year. One of the more fun and frantic turnarounds we've seen probably ever in league history. And now Johnny Rodriguez gets a chance to lead the line and be that Corey Bennett replacement. And hopefully it works out for him. It's a marquee move for a Vegas team that now no longer, what is it, 18 months into the Jose Bautista era, they don't want to be a doormat anymore. They want to make marquee moves. They want to win Western Conference titles. They want to win USL championships, and that's a move that signals just that.
John, you've got the historical expertise here. Is this a rarity, this kind of move in a league like this?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that kind of springs to mind, I guess it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago at this point, when Rodrigo da Costa and Philip Goodwin got traded. That felt like what I think I called at the time the biggest trade in USL history. For something like this to happen, like that was a mid-season move, which was kind of crazier to a certain degree. But for this news to break, what, 2 weeks before the season starts, feels very odd and very consequential for both of these teams. Oakland, in the sense that they're really trusting themselves to either have an option internally or go out and sign somebody. And Vegas, honestly, recognizing a need of, yes, we have some forwards we think are going to have a lot of potential, but we do need that one more piece. So it, to me, is pretty unique in terms of timing more so than the caliber of player.
Yeah, I know that we had spoken throughout the offseason, at least me personally, how excited I was to watch him, Johnny Rodriguez, and Panos Armanakis kind of get to run the show and be the entire attack, those two players, and have that defensive organization behind them. But it sounds like Oakland just kind of got an offer so big they could not stand to refuse it, yeah?
That's the whisper. I mean, I think the quote I heard is that they think that they could sign two Johnny Rodriguez's for the fee. So we'll see what that means in practice. But yeah, you can't say no at a certain point.
Okay. So this one, next question here is kind of a hipster's question, Ryan. I know you noted that earlier. This is a league for the hipster, so I feel like you're amongst friends
Biggest league in the world, I thought.
with regard to that. Geographic.
Geographic.
Yeah, so I am curious though, what non-star addition to you guys is the biggest needle mover amongst new faces and new places in the USLC?
John, feel free to go first here. Although I will contend Peyton's point. I bet you the Russian second division is pretty,
Uh-huh.
geographically. Yeah,
From Vladivostok to Moscow, I'm sure, right?
exactly.
I think Moses Nyman to Loudon feels like something that they need to be impactful and has flown under the radar, but feels like a very big move. I think when Loudon kind of moved from the 4-4-2 into the 3-4-3 last season, they built themselves a shape that quite often had four players kind of within the width of the half spaces. They really did a good job of trying to overload their opponents down the middle. They want to move to a little bit more of an open system this season with a little bit more width. And Nyman is the piece you can plug into that pivot and say, okay, you're going to do the defensive job, but you're a talented ball carrier. You're able to get past opponents, whether you're passing, whether you're dribbling. If he can live up to those expectations, I think it's something that opens up the system under Ryan Martin and can really elevate this team. And a team that had excellent underlying numbers by XG and those sorts of things, it felt like they were one piece away. And given the lack of activity otherwise, I think they believe that Nyman is that piece.
I won't say Huso Hosao. I don't know how to say his first name technically yet, but Landry to I won't say Landry to Charleston because I think it's probably a little more high profile than what the question is demanding. Though I do think he is an extremely impactful move for what is probably the best team in the Eastern Conference. I love what Tulsa, and I'll go back to them. I love what Tulsa did bringing in AB Sissoko and Lamar Batista to shore up a center back group that was lackluster a lot of times last year for again a team that finished outside the playoff spots, no longer wants to do that. Already highlighted some of the guys they've gone for up front, some more chance players, but it's two center backs, right, that are championship experience guys. And Bautista in particular is super, super impactful. Size, stature, pace, athleticism. And he brings a presence to a back line that lacked a lot of that last year. That's something for me. If you're looking at a team under the radar that finished outside the postseason that wants to get in and maybe get into those 5 to 8 slots, that's under the radar to me. A simple, subtle move like that, bringing in two veteran center backs, especially Bautista, to try and push yourself into the playoff line. Because once you get into the playoffs, we've seen it the last couple of years, really doesn't matter how you get in. You just have to get in. And that's all Tulsa's trying to do. They want to get into the party so they can at least try and give a go at it.
Right, and I know that you and I have for a long time considered Lamar Bautista a guy that,
Just
well,
legend of the game.
yeah, we just love Lamar Bautista. I think you said it. The word that defines him is presence. He is presence. That's what he brings to a backline.
Yeah, real enforcer, and that's going to mean a lot for a Tulsa team that, again, I thought last year John lacked a ton of presence, a ton of real like strength to it, and that was their biggest problem. They could play a little bit, but they couldn't really contain a level or maintain a level, I guess is rather the word there, to be competitive in this league.
All right, moving on. Question number 6. Of the goal scorers in new places this year, so new number 9s basically across the league, which individual would you bet your life on scoring the most goals? And that's really a question about the situation players are entering as much as their own ability.
Going for Cal Jennings here feels like cheating, but I think he is the obvious answer. Like
Payton
the
me,
context in
not allowed. You
Charleston.
can't take Cal
Yeah.
Jennings.
Yeah. I mean, other than Cal Jennings, I would say Augie Williams, but I will make the case that Jennings feels like a shoe-in. We've seen a little bit of 4-4-2 in the preseason where they've paired Myers and Jennings together up there in Charleston. If that's the case, if you've got Juan David Torres and take your pick of the other winger, fighting the service, really playing quite freely, I have a tough time seeing Jennings not hitting 15, 16 goals with his eyes closed.
Tristan Traeger at Orange County. I don't know if they'll play him directly as a number 9
Yeah.
because of how they chose to use Ethan Zubak towards the end of last year and how effective he was in that sort of target hold up, like big physical 9 role for Danny Stone in Orange County. They've added obviously Liam McKinnon, who is going to be one of the marquee players stepping up in the league. But if Tristan Traeger can grab 10 goals in good minutes, and I would expect him to play in what is now a very fun front line. I think Danny Stone will try and play some iteration of 4-4-2 or have 4 forwards up there so he can have Zubak and probably put Traeger next to him and then maybe throw McKinnon in a wide area where he can kind of have the freedom and then Jameson hugging a touch line, just beating dudes at the midfield line all day long. They're going to be really fun. I think they're going to create a lot of chances. And, Zubac can't score every goal. He could, but I don't think he can. Tristan Traeger, to me, feels like a guy who's primed to be an underrated option for Orange County to maybe pick up. And again, if he scores 10 goals, Orange County could very easily, in a weird West, be the best team in the Western Conference. So I love the Tristan Traeger move. I don't think it's been talked about a ton. There's obviously better options like a Cal Jennings or an Augie Williams, but yeah, I love the Traeger option.
Yeah, let's dig into maybe some of the other contenders here, the people you may have thought about before defaulting to, yeah, Cal Jennings probably is going to score a lot of goals this year. Who are some of those names in your mind, John?
Yeah, I mean, are we limiting to interleague movers or just any new forward to the league?
forward in any new team?
Okay, Corey Burke to Lexington might be my bold pick. I mean, he's somebody who's been super sub would even be strong for the minutes he's got in MLS the past couple of years. But when he has seen the pitch, he's put up very good numbers, at least on an expected basis. He's somebody that he's going to be in competition with Cameron Lancaster for the starting number 9 spot, it feels like. I tend to think he'll be the one who gets the nod because he's got a little bit more of a hold-up presence. But Burke is somebody who knows how to sniff out goal. He's somebody who's strong in the air. We think we're going to see that kind of 3-4-3, 3-box-3 look from Lexington. If he's just in position to feed off of the Elliot Goldthorpes, the Alfredo Medenses, he's going to get at least 10 goals so long as he's got the playing time. So I think that's maybe my kind of under the radar forward to look out for, at least in the West.
That
Other
was
than all name team Woobens Pacius, Nashville SC legend.
Vince.
I'll look at Knight Pickering in Las Vegas, not really knowing what's going on with how Las Vegas is going to deploy because we don't really know a lot about Antonio Nocerino because you have to throw away Miami. You don't know what he wants to do. So you have to think about it that way. There's obviously a good amount of talent maintained from Vegas's team last year. Knight Pickering was once upon a time, as little as under 1,000 days ago, 2 years ago, one of the darling young talents in this league has slipped away a little bit because of injury and not getting really involved in what was going on in Memphis. I'd like to see what he can do in Las Vegas. I don't know if it's going to be the most forward-facing role for him, but I'd love to see that.
All right, one last question for this particular segment of our breakdown. We're going to break this up into 3 episodes and release them throughout the course of the week, in course with John's previews over on Backheeled to get you ready for this first match weekend of the year. The final question of this clump of the 21. Basically, we've been focusing on transfers, ads, new players in new spots. This one, as a guy who worked in USL League One primarily last year, is close to my heart. Which player jumping up in level from USL League One to the USL Championship are you the most excited to see this year?
I want to, I'm going to jump, and I think I'm going to take John's answer because he obviously took the obvious one in Cal Jennings. I hope I didn't take his answer because that make for much more fun dialogue. It's Pedro Dolabella, right? I mean, that is an absolute dude. And he's been stuck with, obviously, Omaha, which is not like being stuck on a normal League One team. It's
Right.
very much being on a championship team at a lower level, it feels like at times. This is a guy who has, again, over the last 3 years, I think 22 goals, I think 17, 18 assists is the number for him in the sense of a guy who's going to dominate that crucial zone 14 just outside the attacking 18-yard box, going to dictate tempo for a North Carolina team that was oh so close to being, I think, really good last year. They were really fun to watch at times, and I think Dolabella gives them that little bit more sense of control and legitimacy in their second year back in the championship. And it's a step up for him, sure, but it really isn't because this is an individual that I think a lot of people have known for a long time is of the USL Championship level and very much is a starter at the USL Championship level. I'm excited to see him take his 14 goals and assists from last year and how that operates in a USL Championship team that wants to attack, that's remained fairly consistent over the last couple of years. It's a good locker room for him to step into. I don't think he'll miss a beat. I think he'll make North Carolina maybe not the best team, obviously, but certainly a very threatening team at times in the Eastern Conference.
I think
If
maybe
you
one of
think,
the most unique player profiles, not
Oh
only
yeah,
in
yeah.
USL League One, but really in American soccer. There aren't a lot of players that blend his skills.
No.
That's exactly where I was going with it. Like, if you think about what he did for Omaha, played a little bit of the number 9, could be an attacking midfielder. A lot of moments where he would play in the central midfield defensively. He'd be part of a double pivot in like a 5-4-1 without possession. And then he'd push forward up like a number 10 when Omaha was able to keep the ball. If North Carolina was a team that, for all of the good things that they did, never really had that player who consistently could set the tone between the lines in possession. Dolabella can do that while still keeping the defensive framework around. I think he's a special player who's going to be a great fit there.
Okay, so outside of Pedro, anybody else got your attention, John?
Bruno Rendon was actually my first pick here because I think, yeah, what we saw from him in Northern Colorado was nothing short of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Tore the league apart from the right back spot, from the right wing. He kept moving forward whenever Eamon Zayed needed it. But he's somebody in an Indy 11 team that was very short on offense from the right wing, never got the production they needed to match what Aiden Stanley was providing at left wing back. To get an injection of everything that Rendon provides feels like it's going to be a major step forward for the 11. And that was a team that, despite the fact that they finished poorly, had this stretch in the summer where you saw the vision, you saw the potential. If Rendon can step in and be a difference maker from the jump, I think that raises Indy's ceiling pretty significantly.
Yeah, Eamon Zayed, who was his manager at Northern Colorado, a very accomplished goal scorer in his own right, saw a lot in Bruno Rendon. I know talking to us, he was every single time you talk to Eamon Zayed, he would say, he's an MLS player. He's an MLS player. He's an MLS player. And this is the natural progression maybe for him to reach that kind of level. Do you think he is that level of player?
I do. And I think that not only in terms of the athletic frame, which is so obvious whenever you see him for any 5 minute stretch, but I think there's a level of skill that he combines with that, an ability to kind of modulate his speed, understand when he needs to put on the jets, understand when he needs to slow down and be a little bit more of a considerate piece. That makes him not somebody who's something of a one-trick pony, but a more complete player with what's absolutely an MLS ceiling.
Well, and super versatile too, which every MLS team is for supplemental spots, 18 through whatever it is, 27. They need somebody who's going to be really versatile as well, right? And that's another thing that he's going to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. You could definitely see him fitting in maybe Minnesota, Eric Ramsey, having him scream up and down the wings. You think he's a wingback for Indy, correct?
Given that they've got Malik Foster at the right wing, given the fact that they let, I mean, Eunice Bonatti got traded midseason, Hayden White's more of a center back. He feels like the guy at the spot.
Okay. All right. Well, that puts us in the books for episode 1 of this league, folks. We will talk to you soon. Stay tuned on the Backheeled Twitter page for more of us throughout the course of the week.